A dramatic military operation in Africa to rescue U.S. diplomats and their families from the war-torn capital of Sudan. Nearly 100 people were airlifted from the U.S. Embassy in Khartoum under the cover of darkness and with the protection of more than 100 U.S. Special Operations Forces. 3 Chinook helicopters were on the ground in Sudan for less than an hour before flying the Americans across the border to Ethiopia. President Biden announced the successful operation in a statement and promised to help the thousands of Americans still in the country.
This morning, a major sigh of relief as all personnel from the U.S. Embassy in Khartoum and their families have been safely evacuated from Sudan.
As a result of the intensity of the conflict, we reluctantly decided it was time to suspend operations.
U.S. Special Operations Forces making the daring rescue operation under the cover of darkness. The Pentagon saying 3 Chinook helicopters took off from a U.S. base in Djibouti and refueled in Ethiopia, flying 800 miles to the Sudanese capital. On the ground for less than an hour, they rescued fewer than 100 people, including Americans and other nationals. President Biden praising the, quote, unmatched skill of the 100 or so Special Forces members involved. Leaders across the world scrambling to pull their nationals out of Sudan amid days of fighting and a shaky ceasefire, leaving only a small window of opportunity. Saudi Arabia releasing this footage, saying their first group of foreign nationals were safely evacuated and they're back on Saudi soil. The fighting between the 2 warring military groups has only escalated as it enters its second week. It's already claimed at least 400 lives, including 1 American. The Biden administration has been warning private American citizens about the danger, saying they can't count on the U.S. government to get them out.
It is not our standard procedure to evacuate American citizens living abroad.
And that's the focus now, Martha, figuring out how to get other U.S. citizens out of the country. One option is Port Sudan. It is on the Red Sea, and other countries have used it to get their citizens out. The issue is that it is some 500 miles away from Khartoum, and it is too dangerous right now to leave your house, let alone the city. It is worth repeating, 16,000 Americans are still thought stranded in Sudan.
Daring evacuation of the American embassy in Sudan. U.S. Special Operations Forces, including the Navy's elite SEAL Team 6, were involved in the planning and the execution of the operation. Roughly 100 American diplomats and their families rushed to safety, escaping the war-torn country. The military using 3 Chinook helicopters in the middle of the night. Those choppers only on the ground for about an hour during the evacuation. Diplomats had been sheltering in place at the embassy compound in the capital of Sudan. There is now no official American presence in the country. President Biden personally signed off on the mission on Friday and ordered it to be carried out as soon as it was safe and feasible. All of this as fighting rages on in Sudan, including attacks on more than a dozen healthcare facilities. The World Health Organization says more than 400 people have died, close to 4,000 wounded. ABC's Elizabeth Schulze leads us off tonight from the White House.
Tonight, under the cloak of darkness, U.S. Special Operations Forces executing a dangerous and daring mission to evacuate the American embassy in the capital of Sudan. More than 100 Special Ops forces, including the Navy's elite SEAL Team 6, successfully carrying out the operation. 3 Chinook helicopters taking off Saturday from a U.S. base in Djibouti, flying 800 miles to Sudan's capital, Khartoum, stopping only to refuel in Ethiopia. The helicopters on the ground in Sudan less than an hour before airlifting almost 100 American diplomats, staff, and their families out of the country.
Anytime you're flying at 100 knots, very close to the ground in pitch black, there's certainly some risk there.
The Pentagon calling the mission fast and clean, with no shots fired at the choppers in Khartoum and no casualties. All evacuees are now safe and secure. Tonight, a National Security Council spokesperson tells ABC News President Biden authorized the operation on Friday. The president saying in a statement, "I'm grateful for the unmatched skill of our service members." This new image showing Secretary of State Blinken monitoring the evacuation in real time.
It was a very well executed operation that I think, when it comes to these type of operations, it may be a model for the future.
Several other countries, including Italy, France, and the UK, now racing to evacuate their embassies as the fighting intensifies in Africa's third largest country.
And welcome to Newspoint, our focus at this hour. As the fighting between the rival generals continues in Sudan, various countries have started evacuating their diplomats and nationals from the country. The United States of America and UK on Sunday announced that they had flown diplomats out of Sudan, while France, Germany, Italy, and Spain are among other countries who are also organizing evacuations. Let's now take a look at some of the countries that have evacuated embassy staff and the numbers of citizens in Sudan. We start with the United States and the UK. Now, according to the United States Foreign Embassy, they say that there are 16,000 Americans stuck in Sudan. Now, UK says that more than 1,000 people have registered with the Foreign Office. Now, Moscow says, the Moscow ambassador in Khartoum says that 140 out of roughly 300 Russians are stuck in Sudan. Saudi Arabia, which is here, they say that the foreign ministry says that they evacuated 91 Saudi citizens from Port Sudan to Jeddah, including 66 nationalities from friendly or brotherly nations, which include India. And we also have Jordan, which has removed or evacuated about 260 nationals from Sudan. We also have Italy, right here, which the foreign minister says they have removed 140 Italians from Sudan. Other countries include Germany, we have Tunisia, we have Lebanon, we have Egypt, we have Saudi Arabia, we have India, we have Kenya, we have Nigeria, we have Ghana, and finally Canada and Russia. Now, the U.S. Special Forces evacuate all U.S. government personnel and their dependents from their embassy in Khartoum. Now, according to reports, the operation evacuated fewer than 100 people. A newly released photo shows U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken monitoring the operation. The British forces also staged a complex and rapid evacuation of all its diplomatic staff and their families from Sudan. Taking to Twitter, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak paid tribute to the commitment of the diplomats and the bravery of the military personnel who carried out the operation. Meanwhile, Britain's Defence Minister Ben Wallace said that the British troops undertook the rescue operation alongside the United States, France and other unnamed allies. Wallace said more than 1,200 military personnel were involved in organizing and carrying out the rescue operation. A French plane carrying about 100 people also left Khartoum on Sunday for Djibouti, with a second plane carrying a similar number preparing to take off on Monday. The plane also carried the European Union delegation along with some other nationalities. France and Italy have said that they would accommodate all citizens who want to leave, as well as those of other countries who could not otherwise join the evacuation operation. Meanwhile, Jordanians who were evacuated from Sudan arrived safely in Amman. In the early hours on Monday, they landed in Marka Airport in Amman.
عدد المواطنين الذي تم إجلائهم اليوم بنحكي على 343 مواطن أردني، بالإضافة إلى عدد من الرعايا أشقائنا من دولة فلسطين ومن الجمهورية العربية السورية والجمهورية العراقية، وكان لدينا مواطنان ألمانيان قدموا معنا، ونحن كنا منفتحين على أي طلبات كانت تتقدم لدينا، ولكن لسوء الحظ أنه جزء كبير منهم لم يتمكنوا من الوصول إلى بورت السودان لينضموا إلينا.
لا طويل شوي، يعني تحركنا من منطقة في الخرطوم إلى منطقة على بعد حوالي 1200 1300 كيلو، وطبعا كانت هاي التحرك بر، كانت شوي الأمور صعبة يعني، لكن الحمد لله كنا متكاتفين برعاية السفارة الأردنية، والحمد لله رب العالمين تمت الأمور بنجاح.